I must speak louder. Is that better? Okay, now we're ready. Thank you for coming to this event where we get to learn more about Erica Thrash-Sall, our new CEO. Before I introduce her, I guess I should introduce myself in case any of you don't know who I am. My name is Beth Barrett, and I am Erica's assistant. And I'm very happy to be here. And I just also wanted to report that this morning I sent her a text message that said, "Good morning, beautiful. Have a great day. Winky kiss face." If you were here last week, that joke makes sense. If not, it is an awkward statement and you can talk to me about it later. So we do have a pretty simple agenda today, but I did want to go over it with you so you know what to expect. So Erica will come up here shortly to tell us about herself. And then after that, we'll have a performance by our string-alongs. And it is a sing-along, and there will be lyrics, so please sing along. Then we'll have a Q&A portion. So think of your questions that you want to ask Erica. We'll be around with microphones that you can ask. And then after that, we'll move to the Fireside Lounge for a nice little reception. So that is the agenda. And without further ado, come on down, Erica, and tell us about yourself.
Thank you, Beth. Well, good morning, everyone. All right, if you don't mind, I really need to get a photo of this crowd in case I never see it again. I have filled the room. And, you know, from what I understand from last week, people tend to show up for beginnings and endings. So I plan on being around a long time. So I don't know if I'll see this again in a very long time. Well, I just want to say I am so excited to be here with you all this morning. I have to tell you, it's been such a journey to get here to Horizon House, both metaphorically and physically. It's a long way away from where I'm from, but it has been such a pleasurable experience over the past, what is now my 20th day here. I have had the warmest welcome from both the residents, the team here, and just the overall greater Seattle community. And that means a lot, you know, when you're coming to a new environment, just making someone feel welcome. So I want to thank all of you for doing that. I've had a phenomenal opportunity to meet many of you at things like the Ice Cream Social, the Sunny Mondays. I've even had an experience at the community table having dinner out in the hallways. And then many of you have come in and made appointments to meet with me. And that will continue, you know, really an open door policy so I can get to know each and every one of you. But like I said, there's no rush. I plan to be here for a while. So I want to talk a little bit about my past. I want to tell you so many things, but I am going to try to stay on task for the hour. And so I am coming here from Flint, Michigan, where I was born and raised. And so I had the pleasure of being born and raised in a place, and like many of you, I left for many, many years. But I had the great opportunity to go back and really serve the community in where I'm from. And so to tell you a little bit about Flint, Michigan, for those of you who don't know, Flint is the home of General Motors. It's the birthplace of General Motors. And General Motors was started in 1908. And I have a little fun fact about my most recent connection with General Motors. And so General Motors was actually started as a carriage company. It was actually the Durant Carriage Company. And a gentleman named Billy Durant, you know, was the founder. And so the community that I led before I came to Horizon House was started by a woman named Mary McFarland Whaley. And Mary was married to Robert Whaley, who was a bank president who issued the first loan that started that Durant Carriage Company that became General Motors. So that's kind of my little fun fact about Flint. Many of you know Flint. You've heard all about the awful water crisis that our community faced. And while it's so true, you know, the people there really suffered because of, you know, this awful atrocity. The people are resilient. And I will say my most recent experience there was really life-changing for me. So I show up before you today, you know, really as a better person because of my time there. my time there, it made me a much better listener. It made me far more compassionate, a fierce advocate, but moreover, it helped me to be able to look beyond the surface of things and see beauty and possibilities where most people couldn't. So I'm really grateful for that experience because it really helps me be a better leader for Horizon House. So now I want to talk a little bit about my family, which, is really so important to me. And I have this like fundamental belief that we all are who we are because of the decisions that were made by our parents and their grandparents before them. I mean, that's just a fundamental belief. And I take that very seriously as I raise my family. Every decision I make, I really think about that long-term impact. And I think about, I'm making this decision, but, what is this going to look like in the lives of my children's grandchildren? And so, it's something I think a lot about and I take very seriously. It's the way in which I make decisions about a lot of things, especially organizational. The decisions we make today, again, will impact the future. And so, I want to introduce you to my family who have, really allowed me, the support to be able to show up, in my professional life and be my absolute best self. And I want to start, with my dad. So my dad is really, I have to say he's a rock. There are two things I really get from him: my work ethic. This gentleman worked 40 hours, well, more than 40 hours. He worked 7 days a week, about 16 hours a day for 40 years at GM. And if any of you know anything about manufacturing, I mean, it is all consuming. It's not flexible. It's big, it's dirty, it's, a lot of things. My dad was a plant manager for GM, for many, many years. And he most recently, before his retirement, he was the leader of the Cadillac plant. So for any of you who've ever driven Cadillacs, there's a chance, my dad somehow had something to do with that experience for you. And so my dad, he also, the second thing I get from him, and it's a little fun fact, I'm left-handed. Yes. Woo, where are my left-handed people in the room? All right. Awesome. But my dad, really, he's taught me so many things. He was supportive, even though, he worked a lot. He showed up for family. He was the person who was at every activity that I was in, and I was in a lot of activities, but he was there. He showed up, but then he continued to show up through my adult life. So, he's a part of my support network. Picking my children up, taking them places. If I had conflicts, he was the person who really stood in the gap for me. So, my dad continues to be, a champion for me, a role model for me. His name is Art. He's 83 years old. He, enjoys fishing. He's an avid walker, and he has moved to the Seattle community with me. This is my mom, Gloria. Please meet Gloria. She's originally from Kentucky, and my mom's really the visionary of our family. So I want you to imagine somebody from a really little bitty town in Kentucky called Campbellsville, Kentucky, just kind of on the southwest end of Lexington, who ended up having a great fortune of going to high school in Indianapolis. At that time, Kentucky wasn't very long that it had even integrated schools when she was in high school. So she had an aunt in Indianapolis that said, you know what, we want you to have a better education. She went there to live with them. And it was in Indianapolis that my mother got this exposure. She went to school with the children of the Eli Lilly family, the pharmaceutical company, and got exposure that honestly, most African Americans of her time would never have had. And so that really set her vision for our family, one where we would experience culture and we would travel. And while, in the great Pacific Northwest, that doesn't probably sound, that sounds pretty normal. But imagine that from an African-American family living in the manufacturing city of Flint, Michigan. So my parents, my mother, because of her vision, she introduced me to arts and culture. My parents traveled the world, oftentimes taking me with them. I'm an only child, so it's pretty easy to do. And so I'm so grateful to my mother because, again, the way I am today, the way I think today really stems from her vision. Again, those decisions. Next, I'm going to introduce you to my husband. His name is Erica Thrash-Sall. Many of you, if any of you use the Bartell Pharmacy, that's going to be, I think it's about an 8-minute walk from here. He will be the incoming pharmacy manager of that pharmacy. So, please go by and visit him. He's pretty awesome, if I do say so myself. He'll help you with anything that you are interested in getting help with. And he has great patient care. He's one of the pharmacists that he comes with bundles of Christmas gifts every year. He's somebody that people actually write into their obituary because he's been so helpful for families and he's saved countless lives. So I have to do a little plug for him if anybody's looking for a new pharmacy. But I've been married for 23 years, and Isa hails from Dakar, Senegal, in West Africa. He has been in the United States. I joke with him. I'm like, you are really, truly an official American. He's actually lived here longer than he lived in Senegal. He came to Senegal when he was 21. But, growing up in Dakar, it's interesting, even though we grew up a continent apart, we're the same age. And so a lot of the ways in which we grew up was very similar, very similar just because of the times. And, our household, we really live a very, the way in which we live, we appreciate so many cultures, including, culture from Senegal, but really all kinds of cultures. My husband calls himself a citizen of the world, and I will say that that's really, really true. I have a fun fact about him. So my husband, his grandfather, his name is Amadou Clédor-Sall. You can Google him. He comes up. My son was named after him. He was actually directly responsible for the independence of Senegal from France. He was the governor of Dakar region, which is the largest region in Senegal at the time, and really worked with the French government to bring about that independence, and worked with the Senegalese community, to really demonstrate like what is it they wanted. A lot like Horizon House. What do you want in a country? He wrote the family code. That family code still stands today. It was very progressive for its time in a West African country where he was thinking of things about, what if people get divorced? How will children be taken care of? So there was a whole mechanism, a very complicated mechanism for child support and how it would be issued in a time period where most countries didn't even have a child support system. And, everyone in the country wanted him to be the president, but that's not what he wanted. He considered himself what he called a kingmaker, not the king. So he was the person who really encouraged the country to accept Leopold Senghor, who was the first president. And he became a president. He was a Christian in a majority Muslim country. And so that sponsorship from Amadou Clédor-Sall was very important. So that's a little fun fact about my husband and about Senegal for any of you who've ever been there. And I imagine by a show of hands, has anybody in the room ever visited Senegal? Okay, there are a few. I figured as much. We've got a very traveling group here. I've heard about a lot of people's travels across the country. So I figured somebody would have been to Senegal. And if anybody wants to go, please let me know. My mother-in-law is the hostess with the mostest for sure. Next, I'd like you to meet my oldest daughter. Her name is Nafissatou Sall. As you're going to learn, all my children, they're named after the siblings of my husband. It just so happens he has 2 sisters and 1 brother, and I have 2 daughters and 1 son. So it worked out that way. And Nafi, she goes by Nafi. She's actually a rising senior. She's more than a rising senior. She's graduating in December from Wheaton College in Massachusetts. And I know we have at least 1 alumni from Wheaton College. Do we have any more in the room? I know I met 1 person that graduated from Wheaton College when it was still a women's college, but it's co-ed now. And so Nafi, she's an aspiring foreign service officer. She wants to serve in West Africa, or Francophone West Africa to be specific, or Portuguese-speaking West Africa. And so she's studying international relations and French. Next up is my middle child and my only son, Amadou Clédor-Sall. And Amadou just turned 19 yesterday. And so he had his first birthday in Seattle. And he is a rising sophomore at Bowdoin College in Maine, where he is a member of the men's swimming and diving team. And he's a breaststroker for any of my swimmers out there. And he's left-handed, so I keep passing on the goodness. Next up, this is my 10-year-old daughter. Her full name is Zainabu, but she goes by Zaina. And she is a 5th grader and will be attending Cougar Ridge Elementary School. It's in the Issaquah School District, but in Bellevue. And Zaina is just kind of my interesting soul. She is a swimmer. She plays lacrosse, but her passion is for sewing. As of today, she wants to be a fashion designer. We'll see if that still sticks down the road, but that's what it is she wants to do and what she says she wants to pursue. And Zaina is somebody you probably will get to know if we have events where children are involved. She's my child who lives here, so she'll be here. And, as I said, everybody was named after one of my husband's family members. I didn't have any more, so I have to move on to my family. But, 3 is enough. From an only child to 3 is enough. And then next, I want to introduce you to my mother-in-law. She's also a very important part of my life. Her name is Sadaga. And in Senegalese culture, women keep their last name, which is something I notice a lot of our residents here do. They're married, but they keep their own name. So, Senegal, that's a part of their culture. So her name is Sadaga Fall. People are always confused. Is she Saul like us? Nope, she's Fall, like her father. But she is awesome. My mother-in-law, also just a pioneer for diversity, equity, and inclusion. She, what I say, she runs like a home for people who are coming from other countries to study, although not officially. She just invites people in. So there's always somebody living at her house. If they're going to school or need help, they live with her. She feeds an army of people each and every day. People show up. And I just can't imagine, feeding that many people. There's never less than 10 people at a meal, at each and every meal at her home, but she has such a big heart. My children are as close to her, thousands of miles away in Senegal, as they are my parents, who now live with us, but only lived about 5 minutes away. Because when she comes, she stays 6 months at a time. Often she's even stayed up to a year. This is a picture of her holding my youngest when she was born. She actually stayed with us a year so that she didn't have to go to daycare her first year of life. So just a giving spirit. And I'm really excited because she's turning 80 in October of 2024. And we're throwing her like this huge surprise gala. So, and she's so modest and humble. It's going to really be an awesome thing to do for her. And then lastly in my family, but absolutely not least, this is my niece, Fota. As I said, I'm an only child. So, I was glad to marry, someone who had a little bit bigger family. And Fota lives in Virginia. She's a graduate from the University of Virginia. She's got her master's in public health. She currently works for the Virginia State Department of Health, but she is applying for the next cycle of medical school. So we're crossing our fingers. But she and I are exceptionally close because, again, she's an only child like me. And so there's a lot of things that, we really bond over. And, before I had children, there was Fota, and now it's awesome because, she is paying it forward, spending so much time with, her younger cousins. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about my career. It's definitely been an interesting journey, to say the least. Well, to start out, I am a Gamecock. So I actually went to the University of South Carolina, which was such an odd thing for somebody from Michigan, to go to South Carolina. People thought I was probably one of the very few. There were either international students or in-state students, but not many people from Michigan. And one of the things that was funny is that, most people there, when they thought of the North, they literally thought of New York City. I'll never forget, my parents had come down for a family weekend in October, and they brought me Michigan apples. You all living in Washington know what I'm talking about. The fall apples that are crisp like no other. Well, they don't have those kind of apples in South Carolina. So my parents bought them, and my roommates were like, they grow fruit in Michigan? I'm like, yeah, we have farms, but it's a lot of farms. But again, most people had only traveled up 95 and they knew, New York, DC, that was it. But I had a great experience there. I went there because I was a history major, and I was especially interested in At the time, slave revolts. And so South Carolina, had several, and we had a great archives. And so that's why I ended up at the University of South Carolina. And I'll say, I ended up going to graduate school in the Detroit area to a school that was an engineering school. And there were several things that my education really prepared me for. One was to think critically. People say, what do you do with a history degree? It does. It teaches you how to think critically. It also teaches you how the past informs the future. And so you have that history to know that, these things have happened before. I take great comfort in knowing that this has happened in the past in a different way, looking at how past societies solve problems. That was really an important degree that I never really understood at the time how much it would help me in the future. So that was one thing. And then lastly, I got my degree from this engineering school, which was also odd. They had this certification with an MBA in nonprofit leadership, but they still held on to some of those core principles of engineering. How many engineers do I have in the room by a show of hands? Oh yeah, we've got quite a few. So one of the things that my graduate school degree taught me was systems thinking. So how to solve problems using systems thinking. And you can imagine how important that is today. Nothing happens in a vacuum. So I am really grateful for the educational preparation that I had that really helped shape how I lead, how I think, and how I solve problems. But it wasn't necessarily easy getting here. I have to tell you, I was not, I came from an era where there weren't a lot of internships. And I'm going to be really honest, I didn't listen at the time. I was kind of one of those people, I thought I knew everything. And so, I'm not sure even with great mentorship, it would have been an absolute benefit. So I took what I consider the absolute longest, most winding road to finding my professional passion. But I did find it. One of the things that, I did was I quickly learned what I was good at and what I wasn't good at, which was helpful in helping me on my path. I knew one thing, I wanted to help people. That was really important to me. Having grown up in a manufacturing town, I never thought about working for the big automotive company like many people, or really, for profit. I really thought about working for people. That was important. And so, I did my stint as those who want to help people do, kind of, on the ground, helping people, working in grassroots nonprofits. And I quickly realized you're not good at like the social work type stuff. I wasn't good at it, not at all. I knew I couldn't do healthcare and be a nurse, can't do blood or bodily fluids or anything like that. So I knew that wasn't going to work out for me. But what I did have was a deep respect for the people who were serving people, helping people solve problems. And I noticed that they were struggling with resources. So I thought, well, if you're going to do all this hard work, you shouldn't have to worry about how they're going to be paid for. Can you continue doing them? So I quickly became proficient as a person in philanthropy, beginning to raise money so that I could support my coworkers in their great work. And I like to talk to people, so I was pretty good at it. And so I ended up going to work for a large health system, Ascension Health, which today is the largest Catholic health system in the nonprofit Catholic health system in the country, where I held many roles. I started out in philanthropy, ended up building and leading their community benefit program, as well as I spent 4 years on a special project where we helped entrepreneurs in the community start businesses. And we actually funded those businesses. We did, from soup to nuts, from concept to, them delivering services or product. And so I had a 10-year wonderful experience with this health system. It really shaped me. It helped me hone my skills. But, it still did not, I still didn't have my great why, that thing that you have when you're doing the thing that you love and you were meant to do. I didn't have that there. I did good work, but, I wasn't fulfilled. Then I got the opportunity to go back to my hometown. This is in the midst of the water crisis where older adults were completely forgotten. All you heard about was the impact of lead on children. And while many of you know that's devastating, it's irreversible. And I can attest it's real. I told a couple people the story. My daughter went to an early childhood program in the city of Flint for 2 years. By kindergarten, those students who had worked and went to the same program with her, half of the class, 50% of the class were retained in kindergarten. And that was a direct impact of being poisoned by lead. But, one of the things is older adults also struggle, due to being poisoned by lead. In our community, the dialysis rates, the kidney failure rates went up. There were lots more people on dialysis. We had to actually open up more dialysis centers to accommodate people who were in kidney failure as a result. Memory loss, there are just other things that happen. So having the opportunity to go back and really serve older adults and look at things from a different lens, one of the things I got to see is what a lifetime of disparity looks like. But I was also able to offer hope and offer some solutions to some pretty low-hanging fruit around health equity. And so in doing this work and leading this community in Flint, I really found my passion. I loved working with aging services. It ignited me like nothing I had ever experienced in my life. I knew right away that this is how I wanted to spend the rest of my career. So I was at Presbyterian Villages of Michigan for the past 7 years, and now I'm here with you. So just to give you kind of a bit of information about my background and the community I led. So it was the kind of programming was there were 2 independent living buildings and 1 assisted living building on 2 separate campuses. So you can't imagine how thrilled I am that we are all on one campus and we're connected, even though we've got separate buildings. It doesn't feel like it here. You'd be surprised, even though my independent living campus, and I'm going to show you a picture of what it looks like. This is one of the buildings, and that's kind of an old picture because we just went through a major renovation. But these 2 buildings like literally are separated by a small parking lot, but they might as well be on the other side of the world when you hit a January winter in Michigan, because people aren't going from building to building at all. So again, but it was a wonderful opportunity. That particular campus served about 300 older adults in those 2 buildings. Those older adults really, they had a lot of the same energy and sense of community that I see at Horizon House. That was really the beauty of the community, of the campus, was the community. People cared about each other. They spent time together. We did lots of wonderful things together. It wasn't like Horizon House in that it was completely driven and developed and delivered by residents, but it still had that caring spirit. And again, layering on top a lot of healthcare needs and a lot of issues around poverty. I really categorized my time in Flint focused on, really addressing issues of poverty in every way you can imagine, in hope, in disparity, in affordable housing. And so this was the assisted living. This assisted living is almost 100 years old, and we only served women. So it had its niche kind of benefits in serving just women, but again, it was the founder's desire. She founded it, at a time when, if you were going to be a teacher or a woman working in a professional world, you couldn't have a family too. Like you had to choose one or the others in the early 1920s. And so Mary McFarland Whaley was concerned, what happens to older women when they retire and they don't have anyone to care for them? So she started McFarland Home. And again, today we serve far more people. We were able to advance her mission. And so I was very proud of the work that I did there. And so now I'm going to kind of wrap up, my career piece and share with you kind of some personal things that bring me joy. And so, how many of you, I have to ask the question, how many of you had children? You either swam or you had children who swam? Oh, wow. Okay. And so you're going to understand what I'm talking about. For the past 11 years, I have been a swim parent. My children have all swam competitively. As you heard earlier, Amadou still swims in college. And so all of our time, and when I say all of our time, I'm talking all of our time, out of 365 days of the year, 320 of them, you are swimming. It's not a very forgiving sport. If you miss a day or you miss a couple of days, it's going to show up in the time. So I hear it. I'm so glad I got people who understand what I'm talking about. So, past 11 years, I've been a swim mom, vice president of the swim club, all those things that means. And so I've got one more. She's a swimmer, but I have to be honest, kind of hoping that she makes something else her main sport. Because again, it was awesome. I don't regret a minute of it, but we missed out on a lot of stuff because you can't just take a vacation when you want to. You can't do certain things during the swim season, or again, your children will have to sacrifice. So, she hasn't asked just yet about the swim clubs here. So I'm not going to say anything. If you don't say anything, I'm not going to say anything. But so that's been a big part of my life. And so, maybe in a couple months, I'll be able to report to you, I'm a former swim parent. And another thing that's really important to me is mentoring. As I showed you, I had that long, winding road, to finding my passion. Well, it is my hope and dream that other young people don't have to do that. And so I spent a great deal of time mentoring young people and helping them, not only find their passion, but helping them find a quicker road to getting, into their professional life so that they don't spend a lot of time. Not all time is wasted, but sometimes it can be. I want them to help figure out what it is they want to do quicker and help to get them on a leadership path. So I do spend a lot of time mentoring people. Who you see in this picture, her name is Barrett Bannerman. She was actually in the first cohort of the summer enrichment program. If any of you read my bio, you may know that I'm the founder of Leading Age's summer enrichment program. And really, what that is, I'll just, be real transparent. It was born out of just absolute frustration, a little guilt that I felt after the murder of George Floyd. As many of you in this room, it was really a difficult time. Here we were in the midst of COVID, all at home, watching someone be murdered on TV. And it was so moving for me in that, I kept thinking about, what is it that I could do? What can I do that will be lasting? Because a lot of the things I was hearing, just seemed to put a Band-Aid on a gaping wound in our country. And so I thought, it takes the effort of individuals collectively to make a difference. And so during that time, I'll be honest, I had the seat at this table, but because I was the only person with a seat at the table in my organization, my voice wasn't lifting up. I wasn't telling people the truth about how this impacted me, how I felt. My organization was not like Horizon House. And so during that time period, nobody said a word. They acted like it wasn't even happening. And that also had a profound impact on me. And so I thought the reason why I feel uncomfortable because I'm sitting alone, what my contribution can be is that I create tables where more people who look like me are sitting at them. And so that's really the spirit in which the summer enrichment program was created. So I wrote this proposal and what I thought would be a great program for my organization to recruit students from all over the country to aging services. As we know, we have a shortage in every which way on our front lines and, really in our C-suite. So I thought, we have an imbalance in our organizations all over the country. When you look at our front lines, they are heavily staffed by women and people of color. But when you look in our C-suites, you don't see people who look like me and in most organizations. And so I worked on this proposal where we would recruit students and we would really fast track them toward executive leadership. We would plant the seed right away for executive leadership, not middle management, not front lines, but executive leadership where the decisions were made. And so this internship was crafted with that intention. The CEO of Leading Age said, listen, can we help? Can we take this program and launch it nationally? And I said, absolutely, long as you don't sacrifice these key components. And so she invited me, no, we want you involved. Help us, scale this thing. So yesterday was the graduation of our third cohort. So now we have 100 young people from all kinds of diverse backgrounds who are interested in aging services. They've had great experiences. They've had paid internships. And Burrell, who you're looking at in that first cohort, is now in management at Human Good in Philadelphia. Another hobby of mine that's a little lighter is gardening. So I enjoy gardening. And what you're seeing is hens and chicks. It is a succulent plant. This plant is as old as I can remember, as old as my memories allow me to think back, which is a long time. This was my grandmother's plant. And I had the great fortune when I moved back to Flint. I moved back to Flint. Unfortunately, my grandmother died about 8 months later. And because my organization, literally, the independent buildings I showed you, they were literally at the end of the street where my grandmother lived. So my organization, even before I got there, invested a lot in the neighborhood. And so once my grandmother died, my husband and I made a decision to renovate that house and live there. And, I was met with this already beautiful garden that my grandmother, always had. Gardening had been a part of her life. And so, that was probably the biggest trepidation about leaving Flint, was leaving my garden. That was the only thing, to be honest with you, was like, my garden. But this is what I brought with me. I couldn't bring the whole plant, but I brought enough in my suitcase because the movers said they don't take plants. So now on my deck, I have this hens and chicks growing, and I'm, hoping that it'll continue to spread. So it looks like that. And I can, pass this plant on. Some people pass on jewelry and all kinds of things. I pass on plants, but so that's I really enjoy gardening. So I'm going to enjoy seeing what people grow here. Well, I saw groups last night having wine in the bistro, having a great time. And I said, I like wine too. I really like wine. And I like coffee equally as much. So, Seattle was just a perfect place for me to go. My current favorite is Malbec. So every time I go, I want to taste every which one I can and hopefully make it to Argentina. If I don't have a daughter that swims, I'll make it to Argentina to go to one of the vineyards. But, I do. I enjoy coffee. I enjoy wine. They're two of my absolute favorite things. I have a goal in my quest for fun to visit as many coffee houses as I can, many cafes as I can in the Metro Seattle area. How many years do you think it'll take me, you guys? 5 years? 50. All right. Well, that's all right. I'm on the quest. And I am also, I love to read. And many of you, I don't know, you must have known because you've brought me books already. And I'm going to read in each and every one of them. I love to read, and I have a top 2. Like I tried to, it's really hard to drill down because you love so many. But I thought, whose books have I read every single work they had at least twice? And the 2 that rose up to the top for me, I'm sure you all know one. Let me just by a holler out. Do you know who the 2 people in the picture are? James Baldwin. All right, Dr. Coast. That's right, Octavia Butler. I mean, big fan of science fiction, bigger fan of Octavia Butler. So if any of you like science fiction, come talk to me during the reception. I will turn you on. And I tell you, she has a cult following. She literally has a cult following. I didn't know about this cult following until recently because I would have been, probably member number 1. But, her books are, any of you who are into science and nature and thinking about the environment, her work is pretty profound and when you think about society. So those are my favorite 2 authors. I'm also a huge film buff. I specifically love foreign language films, but it's pretty eclectic, but these are my top 3. So the first is called Layla. It's a Persian film, which again, anything that I can spend, more than one time where I'm constantly sharing and encouraging people to watch, one of my absolute favorites. I also, if any of you know who the Hughes brothers are, just phenomenal filmmakers out of California. This movie, Dead Presidents, is just one of my absolute favorites. It really talks about, how we treat veterans in our country, how we treated veterans in our country after Vietnam. And it, just chronicles the life of a veteran and how hard it was, but I love it. And then the last one, which is also my favorite, How to Marry a Millionaire. Has anybody here ever seen that movie, How to Marry a Millionaire? All right. One of my just absolute favorites. I love that movie. I wish my kids loved my movies as much as I do, but they don't, but that's okay. And so I now want to kind of talk to you about what you can expect from me. I kind of told you who I am as a person. I showed you through photos who I am, but I know many of you are here to kind of understand, like, what can we expect from you as our leader? So I want to share that with you. One thing you can always 100% expect is transparency. I'm going to be honest with you. Some of that honesty is going to feel really good and warm, and some of it's going to be hard truths during our time together. But I am going to always be transparent and honest. I have an open door policy. And if you ever want to come, visit, discuss, I'm open. I'm here. I'm here to serve the community. And so I am committed to that. I'm also going to, every single day I show up here, give more than 100% effort on behalf of Horizon House. I'm kind of I'm an all person. I'm not an all in, I'm an all person, and I'm all in. So you can count on me to really give 100+% to everything that I do. And you can feel assured with whatever decisions being made, whatever work's being done, that I am doing it to my fullest and that I have 100% of my attention on Horizon House. You also have my commitment that I am going to safeguard the sanctity of the culture here. This is what attracted me, to this role, is the culture at Horizon House, where residents are really living the life they want because they're designing, crafting, and delivering it. I am going to safeguard that with everything that I am. And that means, not sacrificing, the present for the future and vice versa. So as many as we're looking forward ahead because we want this same culture to just exist into the future, but not at your sacrifice. So you have, really my commitment that I'm going to safeguard and preserve the culture of Horizon House. And then diversity and belonging. I mean, there's a lot of other things you hear, but these are, to me, what's most important. And these are things that I'm going to continue to help us grow in, continuing to have a diverse community, and diverse in a lot of different ways. And those people who are coming from diverse backgrounds to feel a sense of belonging, because that's really what makes Horizon House what it is. And to do anything else, wouldn't be our culture. And so in doing that, it's not easy, though. It's really not easy to bring people into the organization who look, but most importantly, think different than us. And so, my goal is to have us grow our community of diversity and belonging with civility, so that as we are bringing in people who think differently, we're accepting them, we're listening. And while the rest of the world might be doing a whole lot of things and not being civil, we will be civil inside of Horizon House and respect all of us. Because again, everybody here and their rich backgrounds is what makes us a great community. And then compassion. Compassion to me is at the root of everything. What that means is that, again, I am going to listen with both my ears and my heart. I am going to think about how decisions that we make as a team impact individual people. I'm not looking at this as like a population health type organization. It's each individual person who makes up Horizon House, both people who are here today and the people who will come in the future. So you can expect me to be a compassionate leader and really to lead with empathy and compassion. And that, that's for really everything. That's for the residents, that's for the team. That is my leadership style long before it became a topic of every leadership article, to be empathetic and to be compassionate. And that's how I'm promised that I will lead this organization. So you will always have a listening ear. There might be times when we don't agree. I will tell you, I do love to think about things from a lot of different angles. And so I'm open to hear things. I'm open to hear things that might be different than the way I'm thinking. I'm always wanting to expand my thinking and look at things, in a more three-dimensional way and consider other, ideas. So you will find me to be a very compassionate leader. So as I kind of close out, because we are getting toward the end, and I know we've got to hear our wonderful, our wonderful string-alongs, I have some near-term goals. This is a very different lifestyle for me coming to the Pacific Northwest. People really, they work hard, but they also build their life. And I'm learning from all of you the importance of a life well lived. And so I'm on my way. So some of my near-term goals, I'm going to go hiking. I've kind of started on the trails by my house, but I have a goal to really hike. So all of my hikers, I'm looking for all kinds of advice and recommendations. I also have always wanted to learn how to become a floral designer. Well, not a designer, decorator. Let me just be honest. At least to be able to put together my own bouquets in a beautiful way. How about that? And so I'm going to be enrolling in a course sometime in the near future so that I can learn how to do this in a meaningful way. And then lastly, as many of you heard, we're having a great 80th gala for my mother-in-law. And although I speak French and at one time could do a whole lot more, I'm a little rusty. I'm just a little bit rusty. When I talk to my mother-in-law now on the phone, because she speaks no English, I've got to do a lot of translating in my head. It might happen quickly, but I'm still doing it. So I want to spend some time over the next year really brushing up my French so I can, number one, plan this party well, and number two, when I'm there, enjoy myself and have meaningful conversation. So that is it for me. I'm going to turn it over now to the string-alongs.
Welcome, welcome, Erica. The string-alongers are so happy to be here to properly welcome you to Horizon House and all the glories in store. We are particularly hoping that you read and understood the very small print on the last page of the contract you recently signed. That part talks about the fact that every Saturday morning at 9:30, you'll be expected to be in the fireplace lounge with your ukulele tuned up and ready to go. And you thought swimming was difficult. And if you are not the proud owner of a ukulele, that's something we can certainly take care of in a flash. Will everyone please welcome Erica to Horizon House and our famous ukulele band with a show of love singing Getting to Know You. Oh. Lyrics? All right. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Getting to know you. Getting to know all about you. Getting to like you. Getting to hope you like me. Getting to know you. Putting it my way, but nicely. You are precisely my cup of tea. Getting to know you, getting to feel free and easy. When I'm with you, getting to know what to say. Haven't you noticed? Suddenly I'm bright and breezy because of all the beautiful and new things I'm learning about you day by day. And again, getting to know you, getting to know all about you. Getting to like you, getting to hope you like me. 1, 2, 3, getting to know you, putting it my way, but nicely. You are precisely my cup of tea. Getting to know you, getting to feel free and easy. Having with you, getting to know what to say. Haven't you noticed? Suddenly I'm bright and breezy because of all the beautiful and new things I'm learning about you day by 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Our final piece of love includes some wonderful advice for Erica and our superb audience. Please join us singing Three Little Birds. Danny, let's play the love. All right. 1, 2, 3, go. Don't worry about a thing, 'cause every little thing gonna be all right. Sing and don't worry about a thing, 'cause every little thing gonna be all right. Rise up this morning, smile with the rising sun. Three little birds sit by my doorstep, singing sweet songs of melodies pure and true. Singing, this is my message to you. Sing and don't worry about a thing, 'cause every little thing gonna be all right. Sing and don't worry about a thing, 'cause every little thing gonna be all right. Rise up this morning, smile with the rising sun. Three little birds sit by my doorstep, singing sweet songs of melodies pure and true. Singing, this is my message to you. Sing and don't worry about a thing, 'cause every little thing gonna be all right. Sing and don't worry about a thing, 'cause every little thing gonna be all right. 'Cause every little thing gonna be all right. One more time. 'Cause every little thing gonna be all right. 2, 3, 4. This is my message to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you to the string along. That was wonderful. I have to say, I've never been serenaded before, so this was beautiful. All right, so we are almost at time, but I do want to open it up for Q&A. I'll open it up formally, and then as we're in the reception, can I finish asking me questions? But does anybody have any questions?
Erica, over here to your right.
Okay.
Yes, Grant Hildebrand, you mentioned your interest in history and your study of it at your university. I'm wondering what historians were particularly influential in shaping your own thoughts.
I think I have to say, in shaping my thoughts, you know, in terms of the world, and I'm a glass half full kind of person, I would name, I got to think, oh, so many, Lord, let me think. I tend to look at political leaders. And so, you know, there's so many that I can think of, but in particular, like John F. Kennedy. I mean, Jr., certainly John F. Kennedy was, you know, influential in terms of my thinking about, you know, when the world was getting very difficult and very trying times, and thinking about how to make decisions. He is someone that I lean on. Certainly Martin Luther King is someone that I think a lot about. You know, love to read his work, especially when I'm going through, again, kind of difficult times, and thinking about the things that helped him through. You know, when he couldn't see, I always have to put myself in his space and understand, like, we look at his work, you know, at the end. Well, I do anyway. I wasn't alive during the civil rights movement, but I'm looking at the outcomes. But I always think about, what was he thinking about in the moment when he didn't know, you know, what the decisions he was making, what the outcomes were going to be. So those are two that I would say that when I'm making decisions, and leadership in particular, they are like leadership historians that I think about.
I have another question over here. I'm coming.
Thank you. Something I've never understood about that horrible water situation in Flint was why the state was so slow in responding when the needs, from what I learned about it through the news here in Seattle, when the need seemed so clear and obvious.
You know, I have to tell you, I don't have the answer to it, but what I will tell you, and what I think still haunts the Flint community, is that the state was aware. They were aware early on. And so a lot of the not acting had to do with not wanting to acknowledge the level of negligence. Because if you don't know, it only happened in the actual city. Although the water source was said to be changed for the whole county, the other surrounding suburbs refused. They decided not to go on to the Flint, the new water source, only the city of Flint. So people often wonder how much knowledge there were about the possibilities, and why the other surrounding communities, you know, did not have the same, mindset to switch water sources at the same time that Flint did. So, yeah.
Another question on this side.
Erica, this isn't much of a question, it's an observation. We look at everything on your plate, the West Tower project, integrating us into a new Wi-Fi system, keeping all the elevators running at the same time, and then keeping 500 and plus residents happy and content. That's quite a burden, but we know you can handle it as long as you maintain your sense of humor. So if you ever have doubts that you might be losing your sense of humor, I have some nude pictures of myself I'd be glad to loan you, and you'll get it right back.
Well, I will say, in response, Horizon House, I entered into one of the greatest teams there is, so I am not alone in all of these things to tackle, and there are very knowledgeable people with expertise, that are problem solving every day, all of those things that you mentioned.
We have time for one more. If there's any burning question you want to ask. Going once, twice. Oh, I see a hand over there.
Could you tell us a little about how you chose to come here
Okay.
to Horizon House in Seattle?
So I did have a lot of people say, "Oh my goodness, you're leaving affordable housing." You know, but I will say there were several things. Number one, when I knew, that it was going to be a good time for me to transition, it was a very difficult decision, not to leave, but to where would I end up? Would I be supported? Would I be welcomed? Would I be in an environment that could really, be a leader in the industry? Those are things that were important to me. And so, when I was talking to quite a few of the search, organizations, and I really gave them that challenge to say, this is what I'm looking for. This is the kind of community I want to be a part of. I was patient because I wasn't in any hurry, so I could take my time and find the right fit. And then on a personal note, we certainly, put together a list of the type of community, kind of the greater community that we wanted to live in. And so the Deffert group called me and said, I think I've got what you're looking for. And when I read it, I'll be honest, it seemed kind of too good to be true. I was like, wow, this place, really has all of the things that I was interested in, and especially around the resident, led community. And, then what led me here was that, and then I went through the process, and then you all selected me. So. All right, well, I'll be in the Fireside Lounge, so any questions that you have, I welcome.
Yes, so
Thank
please
you.
come on out to the Fireside Lounge. We have refreshments, some snacks and drinks, so come out and join. Thank you so much.